Hello everyone, my name's Stonesy Boy, and welcome back to Reading with Stonesy. Today, we are going in a weird direction of book, but it's a very short book, so it doesn't really matter, called Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. Oi, Franz Kafka. Good man, good man. This is a translation by Susan Bernofsky, not Brofklowski, like you would think from the South Park. That's not her. She's a different human. And yeah, we're actually starting from page 9, because for some reason this counts as the pages with the introductions. This book in total is 126 pages, which isn't bad. Consider we read normally, how many pages is Holes that we read before this? I was about to say that we've been reading, but that's technically not correct, because I'm still reading it as of time of recording this. 233? That's not bad. So yeah, let's begin this book. Introduction: The Beetle and the Fly by David Cronenberg. I woke up one morning recently to discover that I was a 70-year-old man. And this different from what happens to Kroger Sasma in the Metamorphosis. He wakes up to find that he's become a near human-sized beetle, probably of the scarab family, if this household chairwoman is to be believed, and not a regularly robust specimen at that. Our reactions, mine and Gregor's, are very similar. We are confused and bemused, and think the momentary delusion will soon dissipate, leaving our lives to continue as they are. What could the source of the twin transformation possibly be? Certainly in the birthday coming from many miles away, and it should not be a shock or a surprise when it happens. And as any well-meaning friend will tell you, 70 is just a number. What impact on the number will have on an actual, unique, physical human life? In the case of Gregor, a young traveling salesman spending the night at home in the family's apartment in the Perig, awakening into a strange human/insect hybrid existence is, to say the obvious, a surprise. He did not see it coming. The reaction of the household mother, father, sister, maid, cook is to recoil in a bemused horror, as one would expect, and not one member of the family feels compelled to console this creature by, for example, pointing out that the beetle is also a living thing and turned into the mite, or for a mediocre human being a humdrum life, be it exhilarating and elevating experience. And so what's the problem? This imagined constellation could not, in any case, take place in the structure of the story, because Gregor could understand human speech, but cannot understand when he tries to speak, and so his family never thinks to approach him as a creature with human intelligence. It must be noted, though, that in the Burgess banality, they somehow accept this creature is, in some unnameable way, their Gregor, and it never occurs to them that, for example, a giant beetle has eaten Gregor. They don't have the imagination, and he quickly becomes much more than a housekeeping problem. This transformation seals him within himself as surely as if he had suffered a total paralysis. These two scenarios, mine and Gregor, seem so different. One might ask why I even bother to compare them. The source of transformation is the same, I argue. We both have awakened and forced awareness of what they really are, and the awareness is profound and irreversible. In each case, the delusion soon proves to be new mandatory reality, and life does not continue as it did. Is Gregor's transformation a death sentence, or, in some way, a fatal diagnosis? Why does the beetle Gregor not survive? Is it the human brain, depressed, sad, and melancholy, that betrays the insect's basic sturdiness? Is it the brain that defeats the bug's urge to survive, even to eat? What's wrong with the beetle? Beetle is the order of insects called Cleopatra, which means sheathed wing, though Gregor never seems to discover his own wings, which are presumably hiding under his hard wing casings, are notably hardy and well adapted for survival. These are species of beetle in any other order on Earth. Well, we learn that Gregor has bad lungs. They are none too reliable, and so the Gregor beetle has bad lungs as well, or at least the insect equivalent, and perhaps his fate really is his fatal diagnosis, or perhaps it's his growing inability to eat that kills him, as it did Kafka, who ultimately coughed up blood and died of starvation because of the laryngeal tuberculosis at the age of 40. What about me? Is my 70th birthday a death sentence? Of course, yes it is, and in some ways it has sealed me within myself as surely as it suffered total paralysis, and as a revelation the function of bed and of dreaming in a bed, the mortar in which the minute of everyday life are crushed or ground up and mixed with memory and desire and dread. Gregor wakes up from troubled dreams, which are never directly described by Kafka. Did Gregor dream that he was an insect, then awake to find that he was one? What in the world had happened to me, he thought. It was no dream, says Kafka, referring to Gregor's new physical form. It is now clear that his troubled dreams were anticipated insect dreams in the movie I co-wrote and directed by George Langley's short story, The Fly. I have our hero, Seth Bertle, played by Jeff Goldblum, while in deep and throes and transformation into a hideous fly/human hybrid, I'm an insect who dreamed that he was a man and loved it. But now the dream is over, and the insect is awake. He is warning his former lover, and now he is in danger to her. A creature who compassion and no empathy. He has shattered humanity like the shell of Psittaca's nymph, and has emerged no longer human. He's also suggesting that the human has self-aware consciousness is a dream that cannot last, an illusion. Greg is too troubled clinging of what is left of his humanity, and his family begins to feel that the thing in Gregor's room is no longer Gregor. He begins to feel the same way, but unlike Brundle's fly self, Gregor's beetle is no threat to anyone but himself, and starves and fades away to the afterthought as his family reveals in their freedom and the shameful, embarrassing burden that he has become. In The Fly, was released in 1986, there was much conjecture in the disease that Brundle had bought on himself as a metaphor for AIDS. Certainly, I understood this. AIDS was on everybody's mind in the vast scope of disease that is gradually being revealed. But for me, Brundle's disease is more fundamental. In an artificially and accelerated manner, he was gauging. He was conscious that he was aware his body was mortal, and an acute awareness in the humor participated in that inevitable transportation that all of us face, if only we live long enough. Unlike the passive and helpful but anonymous Gregor, Brundle was a star in the firmament in the science, and it was a bold and reckless experiment in transmitting matter through space. His DNA mixes that an errant fly that caused his predicament. Langley's story is published by the Playboy magazine in 1957, follows firmly in the genre of science fiction, which all mechanics and reasonings of science hero carefully, if I fancy fully, constructed. 2 used telephone booths were involved. Kafka's story, of course, is not science fiction. It does not provoke discussion regarding technology and the hubris of science investigation, or the use of science research for military purposes. Without sci-fi trappings of any kind, the Metamorphosis forces us to think in terms of analogy, or reflective interpretation, though it is revealing that none of the characters in the story, including Gregor, ever does think this way. There are no meditation on the family or secret or sin that might have induced such a monstrous reprisal of God, or the fates of no search for meaning, even on those basic essential plane. The bizarre event is dealt in a pre-functory, petty, materialistic way. It arouses the narrowest range of emotional response imaginable, almost immediately assuming the tone of an unfortunate natural family occurrence which one must reluctantly contend. Stories of magical transformations have always been part of humanity's narrative canon. They articulate the universal sense of empathy for all life forms that we feel. They express the desire for transcendence, and every religion also expresses. They prompt us to wonder if transformation into another living creature will be proof of a possibility of reincarnation and some sort of afterlife, and is thus, however hideous or distracting of the narrative, a religious and hopeful concept. Certainly, my Brundlefly goes through moments of maniac strength and power, convinced that he has combined the best components of the human and insect and become a super being, refusing to see personal evolution in a way but a victory even as he begins to shed his human body parts, which he carefully stores in a medicine cabinet he calls Brundle Museum of Natural History. There's none of this in the Metamorphosis. The Samson beetle is barely aware that he's a hybrid, though. He takes small hybrid pleasures where he can find them, whether it's hanging from the ceiling or scuttling through the mess of the dirt in his room, beetle pleasure, or listening to the music that his sister plays on her violin, human pleasure. But the Samson family is the Samson beetle context in his cage, and his subservience to his needs of the family both before and after his transformation extends, ultimately to his realization that it would be more convenient for him to be just disappeared. It would have been an expression of his love for them, in fact, and so he does that, just that, by quietly dying. The Samson beetle's short life, fantastical though it is, it played on a level resolutely mundane and functional. It fails to provoke in the story characters any hint of philosophy, meditation, or profound reflection. How similar would a story be then, if, on that fateful morning, the Samson family found in the room of their son not a young, vibrant, traveling salesman who is supporting an unselfish and endless labor, but shuffling, half-blind, barely a 89-year-old man using insect-like canes, a man who mumbles incoherently in a sole of his trousers and out as a shadowland of the dementia, projects angers and induces guilt. If, when Gregor Samson So woke this morning in troubled dreams. He found himself transformed right there in his bed into a demented, disabled, demanding old man. His family is horrified, but somehow recognize him as their own, Gregor, albeit transformed. Eventually, though, as in the beetle variant of the story, they tried to be so no longer their Gregor, and that would be a blessing for him to just disappear. When I went to the publicity tour for the fly, I was often asked what insect I'd want to be if I underwent an etymological transformation. My answers varied depending on my mood, though I had a fondness for the dragonfly, not only for its spectacular flying, but also for the novelty of its ferocious underwater nymphal stage, which is deadly extendable under strong jaw. I also thought it was mating in the air might be pleasant. What would that be your soul then? Is dragonfly flying havenward? Came one response. Is that not really what you're looking for? No, not really, I said. I'd just be simple dragonfly, and then, if I managed to avoid being eaten by a bird or a frog, I would mate, and as summer ended, I would die. And that's gonna be the end of that for the moment. Because now we are on the main book itself, the Metamorphosis. The metamorphosis. Metamorphosis. But yeah. So that was basically the smaller story. But there's 3 stories in here. With that being just the introduction of said story. I don't know why my video editor just opened, but whatever. But yeah, now we're going to the actual book, The Metamorphosis, in the next episode. So I hope you guys have a true fantastic, wonderful day. People like being fishy, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye. Oh wait. All right. I'm sorry. Before we go, right. Next time we're reading pages 18 to 40, if this book has that many pages in this chapter. This book has so far been strange with those chapters. Yeah, the next time we gotta change is at page 119, so we should be able to do 18 to 40, and then yada yada yada, etc, etc. But yeah, hope you guys are doing a fantastic, wonderful day, and I'll see you guys next time. But what is next time? But a dirty pile of secrets. But enough talk!